22-year-old dates an older woman hoping for her life insurance, but is shocked by what he receives. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Connor's life had always been a string of one get-rich-quick scheme after another, each one falling apart just as quickly as it had formed. At 22, he was charming, quick with a smile, and able to weave a story from thin air to suit whatever situation he found himself in. People liked Connor. He had the kind of charisma that made them feel special, even while he was calculating how he could use them to his advantage. But nothing had gone according to plan. Each gamble, each shortcut, each carefully crafted lie had only left him deeper in debt and further from any semblance of success. When he met Elizabeth, he saw his way out. She was older, by at least 40 years, and wealthy in a way that he had only dreamed of. Their meeting felt almost like destiny, though Connor was quick to brush off any such sentiment. Destiny, fate, love. These were concepts for dreamers, not for someone like him. His focus was on one thing: survival, and if Elizabeth could be his ticket to a life of ease and financial freedom, so be it. Elizabeth wasn't just wealthy. She was powerful. Even at her age, she carried herself with a grace and sharp intelligence that was intimidating. She owned her own real estate firm, a company that had built half the city from the ground up, and her name commanded respect in every social and professional circle. Her elegance was paired with a certain mystery. Elizabeth never spoke about her late husband or family, only revealing tidbits of her life that she seemed to carefully curate. Connor quickly learned not to ask too many questions, a lesson he found strangely easy to accept in his eagerness to keep her intrigued. Their relationship was one of quiet dinners, late-night conversations, and simple companionship. At first, he found himself playing a role: a caring, doting younger man fascinated by her stories of success and intrigued by her view on the world. He would ask her about her favorite memories, the books she loved, the cities she had visited. He knew how to make her feel as though he were genuinely interested, and with each laugh or touch of her hand on his, he congratulated himself, convinced that he was winning her over. But Elizabeth was no fool. She had seen the same hungry look in the eyes of many who had come and gone in her life, people who wanted a piece of her fortune or a place in her circle. She knew what she was getting into, and rather than shy away from Connor's transparent charm, she let him think he had her. She played along, feeding his need for validation while studying him with an astuteness he didn't recognize. Months passed, and Connor felt that he was close to securing his future. Elizabeth had been open about her assets in casual conversations, dropping mentions of her investments, her estate, and her holdings. She talked of her will now and then, always in passing, with a faint glint in her eye that Connor took as a sign of trust. If she mentioned her lack of living relatives, he made sure to appear sympathetic, wondering silently if this meant he could somehow step into her family's place, maybe even her heir. One evening, they were sitting on the balcony of her penthouse overlooking the city, a glass of wine in hand. Elizabeth, silhouetted by the glow of the city lights, looked at him with a mixture of fondness and knowing. "Tell me, Connor," she began, her voice calm and measured. "What do you think about legacy?" Connor raised his eyebrows, his mind racing for the right answer. "I think legacy is... well, it's everything. It's what we leave behind, how people remember us." "Interesting," she replied, her gaze never wavering from his. "And what do you want to be remembered for?" The question caught him off guard, and he hesitated for a fraction too long. He quickly gathered himself, forcing a reflective tone. I'd like to be remembered as someone who made a difference, who left something meaningful behind." Elizabeth studied him for a moment, and Connor felt a flicker of doubt. He wasn't sure if she believed him, but before he could overthink it, she gave him a small smile and turned back to the view. That night, Connor lay awake, his mind restless. The way she looked at him made him uneasy, as though she could see through him entirely, past the charm and the facade. But he reassured himself that she was growing attached, that this was her way of preparing him to become part of her life in a more permanent way. The months wore on, and their relationship deepened. They became inseparable, a fixture in each other's lives, and Connor began to feel that he had won. Elizabeth seemed almost vulnerable around him now, laughing freely and revealing glimpses of her younger self, someone who had once been filled with ambition and dreams that were tempered by the harshness of reality. Yet there were moments where Connor's resolve wavered. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between them, he would feel something genuine. He would watch her from across the room, the way she would hum softly as she prepared their coffee, or the tenderness in her eyes when she told him stories of her travels. There were moments he questioned his intentions, wondering if he could truly care for her beyond the wealth and the promises of an easier life. But he pushed these feelings away, telling himself they were nothing but distractions from his goal. The night before Elizabeth's passing, she invited Connor to dinner at her estate. It was an evening like many others, filled with laughter and good wine. But there was a tension in the air, a weight to her words that Connor couldn't quite place. She looked at him across the table with an intensity that made him uncomfortable, a look that seemed to pierce through his every defense. As they said their goodnights, Elizabeth reached out, her hand resting on his. "I hope you remember, Connor," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper, "that true legacy is something earned, not taken." Connor felt a shiver down his spine, unsure if he had truly understood her words. The following day, Elizabeth passed away suddenly, leaving Connor in a state of shock. For a brief moment, he felt a pang of loss that surprised him, but it was quickly overshadowed by the anticipation of what he believed would be his reward. When he received the notice of her will reading, he could barely contain his excitement. He dressed in his finest suit, practicing a look of dignified sorrow as he prepared to face Elizabeth's lawyer, convinced that soon, he would walk away with everything she had left behind. As he sat in the lawyer's office, his heart pounding with excitement, he glanced at the envelope the lawyer handed him. Instead of a formal will, there was only a single, elegantly written letter with his name on it. His hands trembled as he opened it, and he began to read. Connor's hands shook slightly as he unfolded Elizabeth's letter. He felt an odd mix of anticipation and dread. The envelope had felt heavier than it should have, as though holding not just paper but a truth he wasn't ready to face. The handwriting was delicate, a graceful script that seemed to reflect Elizabeth's refined personality. The letter began without preamble. "Dear Connor, if you're reading this, it means I am gone, and you are likely sitting there wondering what I have left you. I imagine you're expecting something grand, perhaps the estate, the bank accounts, or even the company shares I spoke about over wine so many times. But let me assure you, what I am about to leave you is something far more valuable, if you're willing to see it as such." Connor's mouth went dry. Far more valuable. His mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps a hidden account, a rare asset he hadn't known about. He continued reading, holding his breath. "Connor, I'm going to tell you a story. It's not a long one, but I hope you'll read it with an open heart. When I was a young woman, just about your age, I fell deeply in love with a man named Henry. He was my everything, and for years I believed I was his. But life has a way of revealing the truth, and I came to find that he was with me for reasons other than love. You see, Henry saw my potential, my drive, and my early successes in real estate. He knew I would be successful, and he saw that as his ticket to an easier life. I was devastated when I learned the truth, heartbroken in a way that I never thought I could recover from. But life moved on, and so did I. And I promised myself that I would never again allow anyone into my life who could not love me for who I truly am." Connor shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He felt the weight of her words, as though they were meant to cut him in a way that left no visible wound but stung just as sharply. "You remind me of Henry, Connor, but you should know that I recognized it from the beginning. I saw the hunger in your eyes, the ambition that drove you, and yes, even the charm you used to try and win me over. It would have been easy for me to cast you out, to dismiss you as another charming young man looking for an easy way to wealth. But I didn't. Do you know why?" He swallowed, his fingers clutching the paper tightly, the skin around his knuckles paling. Her words felt like daggers, each one sharper than the last. "I kept you in my life because I saw a glimmer of something in you, Connor. Beneath the layers of charm and pretense, I saw someone who had potential, potential to be better, kinder, more genuine. You may think I was blind to your intentions, but I am not easily fooled. Instead, I chose to let you stay, to give you a chance to prove me wrong. The air in the room felt suddenly stifling, and Connor loosened his collar. The letter felt heavier in his hands, as if it was sinking into his skin, leaving a mark he couldn't erase. But as time passed, I saw that you continued with the same motives, the same hollow promises. And it saddened me, Connor. I wanted to see you grow, to change, to become the man I hoped you could be. In many ways, you became a mirror of my past, a reminder of what I had once gone through, but also a testament to the strength I gained from it. You showed me, in a strange and unexpected way, that I had truly moved on. Connor's hands trembled as he set the letter down, taking a shaky breath. The words on the page blurred for a moment, and he closed his eyes, wrestling with a mixture of shame and disbelief. He wanted to believe this was some twisted joke, that he would find her will hidden behind this letter, her signature on a line that granted him everything she owned. But he knew better. Elizabeth was deliberate, and everything she did had a purpose. He picked up the letter once more, his heart pounding as he continued to read. And so, I leave you with this letter, Connor. This is my final gift to you. A reflection of who you have been and a reminder of who you could choose to become. I know it may not be the inheritance you hoped for, but believe me when I say it is far more valuable than any sum of money. True wealth, true legacy, is not found in possessions or bank accounts. It is found in the character you build and the lives you touch. Connor's throat felt tight. He tried to swallow, but the weight of her words seemed to close in around him, leaving him trapped in a silence he couldn't escape. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen. Every flaw, every selfish thought laid bare before him. I leave you nothing, Connor. Nothing but the knowledge that I saw through you from the start. I loved you as best as I could, hoping that perhaps my love could help you find a better path. But now that I am gone, the choice is yours. Will you continue down the path you've always known, or will you find the courage to become someone better? Remember, Connor, true legacy is something earned, not taken. As he read the final line, Connor felt a hollow emptiness settle in his chest. Elizabeth had left him no wealth, no possessions, only a challenge to confront himself, to face the person he had become and ask himself if this was truly who he wanted to be. He sat there for a long time, unmoving, the letter trembling in his hands. The world felt suddenly quiet, stripped of the illusions he had clung to for so long. For the first time he was alone, not just in the physical sense, but alone with himself, with the weight of his own conscience. He thought of the nights he had spent with Elizabeth, the warmth of her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she shared stories of her life. He had been so focused on his own plans that he had never truly seen her, never valued her for the remarkable person she was. All he had seen was her wealth, her influence, her power, tools he could use for his own gain. The realization hit him like a cold wave. He had never really known her, and now it was too late. Connor sat in stunned silence, Elizabeth's letter still clenched in his hands. It was as though the room around him had vanished, leaving only him and her final words echoing in his mind. The realization that she had seen through him all along, that every carefully crafted line, every insincere smile had been met with her silent understanding, felt like a crushing weight on his chest. He felt hollow, as though the person he had been was crumbling away, leaving him raw and exposed. What Elizabeth had left him was a truth he could no longer deny. He had spent his life chasing illusions, substituting sincerity with charm, and trading authenticity for a lie. And now, he was left with nothing but the consequences of his choices. In the days that followed, Connor wandered aimlessly through his empty apartment. Every time he glanced in a mirror, he saw a stranger staring back at him. Elizabeth's words haunted him, echoing through his mind in the quiet moments. Will you continue down the path you've always known, or will you find the courage to become someone better? He struggled with this question, resisting the answer he knew lay within him. The truth was, he didn't know who he was without his schemes, his carefully crafted lies. The thought of starting over, of living without deceit, felt like a foreign concept. But Elizabeth had seen something in him, something he couldn't see himself. She had left him with a choice, a gift far more profound than any inheritance he had imagined. He knew deep down that if he ignored it, he would be betraying not only her memory but the glimmer of hope she had once held for him. After a week of self-imposed isolation, Connor made a decision. He would try to honor Elizabeth's legacy by honoring the promise she had seen in him. He would do something with his life that wasn't about himself, that wasn't about what he could gain. He decided to start small. He enrolled in night classes at a local college, hoping to gain skills he had never bothered to develop. He volunteered at a community center, working with at-risk youth who reminded him painfully of his younger self, kids who thought they could charm or scheme their way out of anything. In them, he saw the same misguided ambition that had led him astray, and for the first time, he found himself speaking honestly, sharing pieces of his own story in the hopes that it might deter them from making the same mistakes. Over time, Connor's life began to change. The thrill he once found in manipulation and deceit was replaced by a quiet satisfaction in helping others and working towards something greater than himself. He found himself drawn to people who valued integrity, who encouraged him to be honest with himself and those around him. And as he grew, he began to feel Elizabeth's presence guiding him, her words echoing in his mind during moments of doubt, reminding him to stay true to his path. Years passed, and Connor built a life that was far removed from the one he had once envisioned. He had become a counselor, using his experiences to help others who had lost their way. His story became a source of inspiration to those who were struggling, showing them that redemption was possible, even for those who had fallen far. One day, while sorting through some old belongings, he stumbled upon Elizabeth's letter. He hadn't read it in years, but as he unfolded the delicate paper, the words struck him with renewed clarity. Tears filled his eyes as he realized how profoundly she had impacted his life, how her final gift had set him on a path he would never have chosen on his own. True legacy is something earned, not taken. He finally understood what she meant. Elizabeth had given him a legacy far greater than any inheritance. She had given him the chance to become the person he was meant to be. As he looked out over the small office he had built, filled with tokens of gratitude from the people he had helped, he felt a profound sense of peace. He knew that Elizabeth would have been proud of the man he had become. He had chosen to honor her memory, to build a legacy based on honesty, kindness, and growth, a legacy she had believed he was capable of creating. For the first time in his life, Connor felt truly rich, not in material wealth, but in purpose, in love, and in the knowledge that he had finally become the person Elizabeth had seen within him. And in that moment, he knew he had finally found the one thing he had always been searching for, himself. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.